now I hand over then to Sylvain, or first to Eline again.
Thank you, Ulrich. Exactly. So, like Ulrich said, lots of initiatives behind us already, but just as much ahead. So, thank you very much, Ulrich, for joining us today and giving insights on this. And as you see, there's lots of stuff to tackle. So, we're just going to jump straight into the first item of today. And I want to bring in Sylvain, who is head of division at the Market Integration Management Division at the ECB. So, Sylvain, over to you.
Thank you, Eline. Good morning all. My name is Sylvain Debeaumont. I'm responsible for the operations of Target Services at the ECB, and it's my pleasure to share with you this morning some updates on our plans to broaden the access criteria to Target Services for non-banks. We can now jump directly to the slide, the next one. Yeah, even the next one on background. Good. So first of all, the connection of non-banks to Target Services is not something completely new. Shortly after the entry into force of the PSD, Eurosystem central banks, they had already been approached by non-banks, mainly payment institutions at that time, seeking access to Target, seeking access to Euro central bank money. Unfortunately, this was not possible at that time. There were obstacles. These obstacles were not of policy nature, they were more legal ones. More specifically, the Settlement Finality Directive, under which Target is designated, did not include non-bank PSPs in the list of possible systems participants. This means that central banks could not accept non-banks as direct participants without putting at stake, without putting at risk the finality of the transactions. The situation remained unchanged until recently when discussion started on the instant payment regulation, which included the necessary changes to the SFD and made it legally feasible to offer direct participation to non-bank PSPs. Can now move to the next slide. So from the moment the connection of non-banks was legally feasible, the question as to whether it was desirable from a policy viewpoint was put back on the agenda. In general, there was a large consensus around the fact that accepting non-bank PSPs would have positive effect on the efficiency of retail payment markets by fostering innovation and competition. It was also assessed that non-bank PSPs in Target Services would facilitate the provision of instant payments in the euro area. By the way, a large number of jurisdictions in the G20 came to similar conclusions and have accepted already for some of them for years, non-bank PSPs in their central bank systems. As always, when it comes to the Target Services, the new participation criteria shall be, and here I quote the PFMIs, which is kind of our Bible when it comes to oversight expectations. The participation criteria, they shall be objective, they shall be risk-based, and they shall be publicly disclosed. What does that mean? It means that when we are taking the decision to accept or to reject an application, it cannot be on discretionary or on arbitrary or discriminatory basis. The criteria, they need to be objective, they need to be motivated by risk considerations, and they have to be made public. Last point on this slide, the criteria that we would set for non-banks, they shall apply throughout the Eurosystem in a consistent and harmonized way. We want a uniform enforcement of the new rules across all the member states. Interestingly, you will notice that, or you have already noted that the policy stance, which was published in July 24, did not only apply to Target, but also to the other payment systems which are operated by central banks and which are not under the legal perimeter of Target. Here, we are mainly speaking about the CSMs operated by some central banks, and they would also have to apply this new policy. We can move to the next slide. So more concretely, what are these access criteria that are or will be applicable to non-bank PSPs? The direct access would be granted to duly authorized payment institutions and electronic money institutions when they are established in the EEA. So we speak about non-banks in general, not bank PSPs for, I would say, convenience reasons, but actually it's these two specific forms of institution that we have in mind and that we will accept in Target, so the payment institution and electronic money institution. Second point I'd like to make is that as operator of Target, we need to ensure that our participants have reached a certain level of maturity when it comes to their operational capabilities or their ability to properly manage their risk. So for credit institution, we rely on the supervisors to carry out these verifications. We will follow a bit the same logic for these new entrants, and we will rely on the regulatory arrangement as set out in the PSD2. When it comes to the other operational or security requirements that we have in Target, they will apply equally to credit institutions and to non-banks. In other terms, we are not lowering the bar, so to say. We do not accept a higher operational risk because we would have non-banks as participants. It's the exact same set of requirements that will apply to all categories of participants, banks and non-banks. We will see that more in detail in the coming slides. The access criteria for the non-bank PSPs, they were already disclosed in January this year in a dedicated ECB decision, which was published, of course, on the ECB website. This decision still needs to be implemented in the guideline, in the target guideline, as well as in the rules governing the other payment systems operated by Eurosystem and CBs. Can move to the next slide. Let me complement the eligibility criteria, which are more of a legal nature, with some practical details, having in mind more specifically the account setup. In principle, the non-banks, once they are accepted in Target as direct participants, they will have access to the same payment services and the same system features as the credit institutions. There are, however, some exceptions or some differences which are highlighted here on this slide. The first difference is the fact that non-banks will not have access to credit, neither the refinancing operations nor the overnight credit or intraday credit. These are instruments that are restricted in principle to monetary policy counterparties. Second point is the fact that the accounts held by non-banks will bear no interest. It's the basic remuneration rules that will apply, which means in the current situation, 0%. An important aspect on which I'd like to shed some light concerns the safeguarding of funds. The funds on the target account held by the non-banks will not be treated as safeguarded funds. The funds on the target accounts, they will be deemed to be those of the non-bank PSP. By the way, it's a rule that applies already to all the credit institutions. We just apply the same rule as well to the non-banks. We consider that it's not a core function of the central bank to substitute to market participants for providing safeguarding services. Moreover, offering safeguarding at central banks would give rise to a number of policy concerns and might ultimately have negative impacts on the safety and soundness of the financial system. From a financial stability perspective, it is important that such accounts held by non-banks on a target services are primarily used for payment purposes and are not used, or I would say misused, for safeguarding purposes. And for that reason, we will limit the funds that can be held on non-bank PSP's account to what is strictly necessary to meet the participant's settlement obligation. The limit will be set for each non-bank PSP. It's not going to be one size fits all. We will be looking at the situation of each non-bank PSP. The limit will be equal to twice the peak daily value of outward payments processed by the participant over a given period. That should give enough flexibility, enough buffer to non-banks to operate their account on target without difficulties. For the newly connected participants, we will be establishing the limits looking at the activity of the participants on a monthly basis, then quarterly basis, and once they have reached or once they have completed a full year of operation in targets, then we will use we will calculate the maximum over that period of 12 months, and afterwards, in the when we are at cruise speed somehow, the limit will be adjusted on a yearly basis. Let me add as well that the limits only apply to overnight balances. There will not be any capping of the funds that non-banks can hold on their account intraday. It's only at the end of the day that we will check the compliance with the limit. And if the limits are breached, then there will be penalties that will apply to the non-banks. We move to the next slide. So all these elements that we speak about, the access criteria and also the other practicalities, they will be implemented in the target guideline. It was initially planned to amend the target guideline so that these changes enter into force on the 16th of June 2025. This is a communication we had been doing so far. Unfortunately, those plans, they had to be changed because of the delays in some member states in transposing the amendments to the SFD and to the PSD2 in their national legislations. So in order not to give rise to legal risk, the amendments to the guideline had been rescheduled to October this year, and a communication had been released last week, Thursday, on the ECB website. Still, that does not prevent the central banks operating their own CSMs to provide access to non-banks before that date of October, subject, of course, to their national legislation being amended in line with the PSD and SFD provisions. This does not prevent either the non-bank PSPs to already prepare their connection to target and to start their testing campaign even earlier than this date of October. We can move to the next slide. So if you are a non-bank PSP and you are interested in applying to a direct connection to target, it means if you want to hold an account in T2 or in TIPS, the procedure that you will have to follow is largely similar to the one that is in place for the existing participants, in the sense that you will have to, so these are only examples, but you will have to install an IT infrastructure to connect to the target service. You will need to provide a self-attestation that you are in compliance with the security requirements imposed by target, provide a reference data form to detail the setup of your account, provide legal provision, and of course go through a number of certification tests. There is nothing new here. That's already the procedure that applied to the existing participants. There are two things which are specific to non-banks. The first one is that non-bank PSPs, on top of the different elements, they need to provide a statement confirming that they are in compliance with the relevant provisions of the PSD. So depending on how the PSD has been implemented in the national law, these statements may either be issued by the national competent authority or signed by the competent management body of the non-bank PSP. And besides the provision of that statement at the time of the application, the non-bank PSP will also have to renew that statement on a yearly basis. That's the first difference. The second difference in the application process is the fact that the non-bank PSPs will have to provide the central bank with information which is necessary to calculate the maximum holding amount, the limit that I was referring to on the previous slide. So that's a number of statistics that would have to be provided to the National Central Bank. Can move to the next slide. Thank you, which is the last one actually for that presentation. So as already indicated, non-bank PSPs, they have already started to approach their central bank in view of possibly establishing a direct connection in target. With the support of the national central banks, we have tried to estimate, even if it's at high level, the number of connections that we might be facing in the coming month. We presently, so based on the information we have collected, we presently expect that there would be some tens of new connections. We also see that there is a very heterogeneous geographical distribution with, in most of the cases, one or two non-bank per banking community, and almost 2/3 of those that we have recorded in one specific banking community. So not a very homogeneous geographical distribution. The first information that we have collected tend to indicate that non-banks are mainly seeking an account on T2, on the RTGS, for settling their cash obligation in the other FMIs. At least for the time being, there are only a few of them which are looking for an account on TIPS. So from the information we have collected so far, we have no clear indication that non-bank PSPs would eventually have a major implication on the operation of target services, neither in terms of the traffic that they may bring, nor in terms of the changes that they would trigger on the participation structure. We will anyway continue to monitor how the non-bank PSPs are onboarded on target and how their business is developing. So that's thanks a lot for your attention. That was the end of the presentation, and perhaps we can take some questions from the audience.
Yes, Sylvain, thank you so much. A lot of information here. We have a lot of people interested in this topic. So we were even receiving questions before you even got started, Sylvain. So good on that. But we've been looking at these questions. I think you answered most of them already, but you know, we will pick up a few. And I'm just reposting here in case somebody joined later. This is the place to ask questions. So you take your little smartphone and you scan the QR code, and via this link, you can post as many questions as you like to Sylvain here on the non-banks. So I would just give Sylvain a 30-second breather, because what we keep referring to here a few times in today's event is that we publish this on the website. And that is true. And good luck and welcome to the ECB website. It is a massive place. And sometimes it can be maybe a little bit challenging to navigate this place of the ECB website. But I want you just to give you a little bit of a heads up on where to go. So the place you want to be is under payments and financial stability. So top bar, that's the place. Once you get to this place, we have a specific area just for the target services. So target services, if you mouse over that, you basically get all the different services that we have in operation on the right-hand side of the screen now. And here at the very bottom, we have this place called Target Professional Use Documents and Links. And here in this section of the website, you can find all the more technical parts of the target services. So the page looked like this, and it's split up then based on the different services. So this is a good place to just, write somewhere in the back of your mind. This is the place to go and find more technical documents about the different services. So they're really set up. I think we have it on the next slide. So they're a little different, but you see that they're all set up in a way where that should help you as users of our services to easily find more technical information about their services in operation. So that's a good place to just take a mental note of that. I also just want to quickly highlight another place that is good to remember. So on the next slide, you will see another section of the website still under the payments and financial stability. It's on the opposite, so right on the left-hand side of the screen, you have payments, news, and events. If you click on this, you will get to the page where, for instance, we live stream this event. So this is a good place where you can keep up to date about what are the events that we have on the plate for you ahead of us, and you can also revisit and view again all the information that we presented to you in past events. As said before, on this page we will be posting the recording of this event, including all the slides shown. So you will have the opportunity to go back and find all this later. It's also in this section that you will be finding any news. So the news that Sylvain was mentioning before that we issued on the change of date for the non-banks access to T2, that was also published in the section on the news. But that was it for me. I want to bring Sylvain back because Sylvain, I think we have a few questions that you may want to dive into. Maybe there's a few of the reminders of the things you went through, but anyway, let's give it an opportunity for the people. So over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Eileen. There is a question that's Q6 in our list, whether the names or the identity of the non-banks will be publicly disclosed, and the answer is yes. Non-banks will be treated as credit institution. There is a directory of the different services, be it T2 or TIPS, and when a non-bank is connecting as direct participant, it will be recorded, it will be listed as the other participants. There is also question 7 as to how we are defining non-bank PSPs. That's something we have also covered in the presentation. Non-bank is a generic term. What we mean more specifically are payment institution and electronic money institution as defined under the PSD. We are only offering access to these two categories, not to further categories of non-bank, which is a broader concept. Perhaps I may also add another question which is not in the list, but I just forgot to say. For me, it went without saying, but I prefer to clarify. The rules that I was presenting today, they apply to the euro, to the services, to the settlement services that we are providing in euro, in T2 or in TIPS. You know that already for some months, or even more, for some of them, we have as well Swedish krona and Danish krona. These central banks have their own policy when it comes to access to non-banks. The one I was presenting today is only the access to euro-denominated accounts, so the Eurosystem rules. And also a question which was not asked, but perhaps it's better that I clarify as well. When I was referring to the limit that will be imposed on the holding of the non-banks, this is a limit which is not going to be technically enforced, meaning that when you are reaching your limit and you have new payments coming on the account, we are not going to reject the account because it would bring your balance above the limit. That would be too disruptive for the smooth settlement of transactions in our system. It's just that at the end of each day, we will be looking as to whether the non-bank PSPs have been above the limit, and if it's the case, then there would be a penalty applying. But it's more an ex post verification. It's nothing that is implemented in real time. And perhaps for the sake of time, I would be stopping
exactly.
here.
Super, Sylvain. No, thanks so much. I think we covered them. I think most of the other questions were already covered in the slides. So we just had the super engaged viewers here responding even before you started. So thank you so much, Sylvain. We will keep you in the meeting. So in case more comes up that we feel we have to answer, we will bring you back on. So thanks to Sylvain.